Daniel Reed lived on a wide piece of land near the Arizona-New Mexico border, a quiet place where the desert stretched farther than the eye could see. Every morning, he woke before the sun, stepping out into cool air that smelled of dry earth and sagebrush. For Daniel, the ranch was not just a home. It was a way of life he had learned since childhood. His father had taught him how to handle cattle, repair fences, and respect the land. After his parents passed away, he stayed on the ranch, keeping their traditions alive in his own quiet, steady way. Daniel enjoyed the peace of the desert. He liked the sound of wind brushing through the tall grass, the calls of distant birds, and the slow rhythm of working with animals. He did not talk much, even to the few neighbors who lived miles away. People around the region knew him as a good man, honest, hard-working, and respectful. But they also knew he kept to himself. Some thought he was lonely, but Daniel never complained. He believed the land kept him company in its own silent language. One late afternoon, when the sun hung low and turned the sky a burnt orange color, Daniel was riding his horse along the outer fence of his ranch. He was checking for broken posts after a night of strong winds. The air was still warm, but the temperature was beginning to fall as evening approached. As he rode closer to a small, dry creek bed, his horse lifted its ears, sensing something unusual. Daniel slowed down and scanned the area. A moment later, he saw a horse standing near the edge of the creek. The horse was dark brown and breathing heavily. Its saddle was decorated with hand-woven patterns, something Daniel recognized as Apache work. Then he noticed a young woman kneeling beside the horse, her hands on the animal's leg as if checking for an injury. Without hesitation, Daniel guided his horse closer and dismounted. He approached slowly, careful not to startle the woman or her horse. The woman looked up at him, her eyes sharp and alert. She wore traditional Apache clothing, simple but beautifully decorated, and her long black hair was tied loosely behind her shoulders. "Your horse is hurt?" Daniel asked gently. The woman paused for a moment, studying him as if deciding whether to trust him. Then she nodded. "He stepped wrong near the rocks," she said. "His leg is hurting him." Her voice was calm but filled with worry. Daniel crouched near the horse, keeping his movements slow so the animal would not feel threatened. He touched the horse's leg carefully and felt swelling near the ankle. "It's a sprain," Daniel said softly. "He needs rest, and the leg should be wrapped. I can help, if you want." The woman nodded again, this time with more ease. "I would be grateful." Daniel returned to his own horse and took out a cloth bandage from his saddlebag. He had learned long ago to carry supplies for emergencies. When he came back, he began wrapping the injured leg with gentle hands. The horse stood still, trusting the calm energy Daniel carried. While he worked, the woman watched him quietly. She seemed surprised by how skilled and patient he was with the animal. Many outsiders rushed or handled horses roughly, but Daniel moved as if he understood the horse's pain. When he finished, he stepped back. "He should be able to walk slowly now. You shouldn't ride him today. If you want, I can guide you to my ranch. It's not far. He can rest there." The woman hesitated. Daniel could see she was unsure. He understood. The Apache community had faced many challenges for generations. Trusting someone from outside was not always simple. Daniel respected that. "You do not have to come if you don't want to," he said calmly. "But the horse needs water and rest. It's safe there." The woman looked into his eyes, searching for any sign of dishonesty. She found none. Daniel's expression was steady and sincere. After a moment, she gave a small nod. "My name is Nayeli," she said. "I'm Daniel," he replied. Together, they walked the horses toward the ranch. The desert around them glowed in soft evening colors. Long shadows stretched across the sand, and the air cooled, carrying the faint smell of mesquite trees. They did not talk much, but the silence between them did not feel awkward. Instead, it felt natural, like the land itself was filling the space with its quiet presence. When they reached the ranch, Daniel led Nayeli to the stable. He gave the injured horse fresh water and prepared a sheltered stall with clean hay. Nayeli watched everything carefully, noticing how calmly Daniel handled each task. She could tell he had lived his whole life on this land. "Your ranch is peaceful," Naeli said softly. Daniel nodded. "I try to keep it that way." He offered her a seat outside the stable. The sky above them was darkening, and stars were beginning to appear, shining brightly in the clear desert air. Daniel brought her a cup of cool water, and they sat quietly for a moment. "Do you live far from here?" Daniel asked. "My family is on the reservation," Nayeli answered. "I was riding back when my horse tripped." Daniel nodded. He knew the reservation was several miles away, separated by a mix of open desert and rocky terrain. "You're welcome to rest here a while," he said. "The night is cooling fast. You can head home in the morning when the horse feels better." Nayeli looked at him with a thoughtful expression. "You are kind," she said. "Most people I meet outside my community are not this patient." Daniel shook his head gently. "I'm just doing what anyone should do." But Nayeli knew not everyone did. She had met people who looked at her with suspicion or spoke with coldness. She understood the world outside, the reservation could be unfriendly. Yet here, in this quiet ranch, she felt a surprising sense of safety. A soft breeze moved through the yard, carrying the sound of crickets. The night sky became darker, filled with thousands of stars that shimmered like distant lanterns. "You know," Daniel said after a pause, "I've always respected the Apache people. Your traditions, your connection to the land. I think that's something many folks have forgotten." Nayeli turned her eyes toward him, surprised again by the gentle honesty in his voice. She had expected him to be like most outsiders, curious but detached. Instead, he spoke with respect, not as someone trying to impress her, but as someone who truly meant what he said. "My grandmother used to say," Nayeli replied, "that the land listens to the heart of a person. If the heart is pure, the land welcomes them." Daniel smiled slightly. "Your grandmother sounds wise." "She is," Nayeli said softly. "Her words guide many of my choices." "She is, Nayeli." The two sat in comfortable silence again. Though they had known each other for less than a day, something about the moment felt familiar and gentle. The quiet ranch seemed to create a small world of calm around them, as if the desert approved of their meeting. Later, Daniel showed Nayeli where she could rest inside the small guest room his parents had once used for visitors. It was simple but clean, with a warm blanket and a window facing the night sky. "If you need anything, I'll be nearby," Daniel said. Nayeli gave a grateful nod. "Thank you, Daniel." Daniel returned to the stable one more time to check on the injured horse. As he stood there in the soft glow of the lantern, he realized something unexpected. Meeting Nayeli had stirred a feeling inside him he hadn't felt in a long time. It wasn't love, not yet. But it was something gentle. Something like the first spark of connection. Inside the guest room, Nayeli sat by the small window, looking at the stars. She thought about Daniel's kindness, the way he spoke, and the calm strength he carried. She had met many people in her life, but very few made her feel safe the way he had in only a few hours. She whispered softly, "The land brought me here for a reason." Neither of them knew it yet, but this simple meeting, an injured horse, a quiet rancher, and a woman guided by tradition was the beginning of a story that would change both of their lives. The next morning, Daniel stepped out of his small house and breathed in the cool desert air. The sun had not yet climbed over the distant hills, and the world was painted in soft blue and gray shades. He always enjoyed this quiet time of day, when everything felt fresh and full of possibility. He fed his animals, checked the water troughs, and then walked toward the stable to see how Nayeli and her horse were doing. When he reached the stable, he found Nayeli already awake. She stood beside her horse, brushing its coat gently while humming a soft tune. Her voice was calm and steady, blending beautifully with the morning stillness. Daniel paused for a moment, watching her. There was something peaceful in the way she moved, like she belonged to the land just as much as the desert plants and the warm wind. "Good morning," Daniel said quietly as he approached. Nayeli looked up and gave him a warm smile. "Good morning, Daniel." He checked the horse's wrapped leg and nodded. "The swelling is going down. He should be able to walk home slowly today." "That is good," she replied. Thank you again for helping yesterday. You don't need to thank me, he said. It was the right thing to do. She paused, studying him. Not everyone would think that way. Daniel gave a small shrug. Well, they should. Nayeli smiled again, and Daniel felt a surprising warmth spread through him. He wasn't used to having company at the ranch, but something about her presence felt natural. After giving the horse some water, Nayeli followed Daniel outside. The sun was beginning to rise, turning the horizon gold. The desert lit up slowly, revealing long stretches of land as far as they could see. Daniel picked up 2 cups of warm tea he had prepared earlier and handed one to her. She took it gently, as if accepting a small gift. They drank the tea in silence for a moment, each appreciating the morning in their own way. Finally, Nayeli spoke. My grandmother says the morning light carries truth, she said softly. When the sun rises, it shows things clearly. Daniel nodded. I've always liked mornings. They make everything feel possible. She watched him thoughtfully. Your life here is quiet but strong. I can feel it. It suits me, he said. I like the work. I like the land. Nayeli looked out toward the desert. My people say the land has memories. It remembers kindness and respect. Daniel listened carefully. He always enjoyed hearing her speak about her culture. She spoke with wisdom beyond her years, shaped by traditions and stories passed down through generations. When you helped my horse, she continued, I felt you were someone who listens to the land. When you helped my horse, he felt humbled. I just try to do what's right. Nayeli nodded. That is exactly what my people admire most. The conversation flowed easily, and soon Nayeli felt comfortable enough to share something more personal. In my community, she began, family and elders guide many of our decisions. They want me to choose a partner soon. Someone who will help continue our family line and traditions. Daniel turned to look at her, surprised by how openly she was speaking. She continued in a calm voice. It is important in my culture. Not just for family, but for the strength of our community. My grandmother wants me to choose someone with a strong spirit. I see, Daniel said gently. That must be a lot of pressure. It can be, she admitted. Many expect me to choose someone from the tribe, someone they already know. Daniel nodded slowly. He didn't want to pry, but he could sense that speaking about it was not easy for her. And what do you want? He asked softly. Nayeli paused. She looked toward the open land again, letting the cool morning air brush against her face. I want someone who respects traditions, she said. Someone who understands the land. Someone who has a kind heart. She stopped for a moment, as if choosing her words carefully. These qualities are rare. Daniel wasn't sure how to respond. He didn't want to assume anything, but he felt honored that she would share such personal thoughts with him. She moved her fingertips lightly along the edge of her cup. I do not rush decisions. My grandmother says the spirit shows the right path in its own time. Daniel nodded. My parents used to say something similar. They believed good choices come from patience. Nayeli looked at him, her eyes gentle. Your parents taught you well. A quiet moment passed between them, filled only with the distant sound of wind shifting through dry brush. It felt like the land itself was listening. After finishing their tea, Daniel invited her to walk around the ranch before she headed home. Nayeli agreed. As they walked past the cattle pens and the tall mesquite trees, Nayeli asked questions about the land, the animals, and Daniel's routines. He answered every question honestly, enjoying her interest. At one point, they reached the old wooden fence that marked the back edge of the ranch. It faced a wide stretch of open land, untouched and beautiful. Nayeli stood quietly, admiring the view. This place holds peace, she said softly. Daniel smiled. It's been in my family for a long time. She turned her head toward him. Do you ever feel lonely? He paused, surprised by the direct question. Sometimes, he admitted. But I'm used to it. The land keeps me company. The animals too. He gave a small laugh. I guess I don't mind being alone. Nayeli looked at him with understanding in her eyes. A strong person does not fear silence. Her words touched him more than he expected. He looked into her calm, steady gaze and felt something shift inside him. He didn't know what it was yet, but it felt important. Later, Daniel helped Nayeli prepare her horse for the journey home. The animal walked more easily now, thanks to Daniel's careful care. Before she left, Nayeli stood beside her horse and faced him. "You have shown me kindness," she said. "I will return tomorrow to check his leg again, and to thank you properly." Daniel shook his head. "You don't have to thank me, but I want to," she said with a gentle smile. "And I want to learn more about this place." Her words warmed him again. "You're welcome here any time." Nayeli mounted her horse slowly, keeping the injured leg unburdened. She gave Daniel one last look, a look full of gratitude, curiosity, and something Daniel couldn't quite name. Then she guided the horse toward the open desert path that led back to her community. Daniel watched until she disappeared into the distance. The wind picked up lightly, stirring dust across the yard. He stood there for a long time, thinking about her words, her calm strength, and the peaceful presence she carried with her. True to her promise, Nayeli returned the next day, and the next. Sometimes she brought dried herbs or small hand-woven items from her grandmother. Other times, she simply came to talk, to learn more about ranch life, or to share stories from her community. Each visit felt natural, as if it was meant to happen. Daniel found himself waiting for her without realizing it. Her presence filled the ranch with a warmth he had never expected or asked for, but quickly came to appreciate. One afternoon, they worked together repairing a section of fence that had weakened. Daniel showed her how to measure the posts and secure them. Nayeli listened carefully, following each instruction with focus. She was strong and capable, surprising Daniel with her determination. After they finished, they sat under the shade of an old tree, drinking cool water from a shared jug. The desert breeze moved softly through the branches above them. "Do you fix things alone every day?" Nayeli asked. "Most days, yes," Daniel replied. "It's quiet work, but it keeps the ranch standing." She nodded. "You work with patience." "My grandmother says patience shows the true strength of a person." Daniel smiled. "Your grandmother seems to know a lot about people." "She does," Nayeli replied warmly. "She says the world shows its secrets to those who move gently." Daniel looked out over the fields. They shared more stories about Daniel's childhood on the ranch, about Nayeli's community, about traditions, beliefs, and small moments from their lives. With every story, trust grew between them. Simple conversations became meaningful ones. Quiet moments felt full instead of empty. Days passed, and their connection deepened in ways neither of them expected. Daniel learned more about Apache customs and the importance of elders, family, and spiritual guidance. Nayeli learned about ranching, resilience, and the quiet strength Daniel carried in everything he did. There were no grand gestures or dramatic events, just two people finding understanding through patience, kindness, and shared respect. Yet somehow, these simple moments began shaping something strong between them, something unspoken but undeniably there. Little by little, Nayeli began to see Daniel not just as a helpful rancher, but as a man whose spirit matched the qualities her grandmother valued most. And Daniel, without trying, had already earned a place in her heart, a place she had not intended to open so soon. She sensed something important growing between them, something that might lead her toward a choice she never expected to make. The days continued to pass, and with each new sunrise, the bond between Daniel and Nayeli grew in quiet but meaningful ways. What started as small conversations and shared tasks slowly turned into a deeper trust that neither of them spoke about openly. They simply felt it. The way one feels warmth from the sun, without needing to describe it. Every morning, Daniel found himself glancing toward the long dirt road that led to the reservation. Many times, he saw Nayeli riding toward the ranch with a calm smile, and a small gift from her grandmother. A woven bracelet, a bundle of sage, or a tiny pouch filled with herbs. Daniel kept every gift she brought, storing them neatly in a drawer, as if each one held a story of its own. Nayeli helped Daniel with different chores whenever she visited. Sometimes she fed the animals. Sometimes she helped mend a fence. and sometimes she simply walked beside him while he checked the cattle. Their conversations were soft and easy. They talked about their families, their traditions, and the land they both respected so deeply. One quiet afternoon, after they finished repairing a wooden gate, Nayeli sat on a flat stone near the barn. Daniel stood a short distance away, coiling a rope. The warm wind blew gently through the yard, lifting strands of Nayeli's long hair. For a moment, she simply watched Daniel, his calm movements, the steady way he worked, the kindness he carried without even realizing it. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her mind. A strong heart is shown through quiet actions, not loud words. Nayeli felt her chest tighten with a strange, gentle emotion she hadn't expected. She knew she needed to speak with her grandmother that night. As the sun began to set, she prepared to return home. Daniel walked her to the edge of the ranch. As he always did. "Come back tomorrow," he said softly. "I will," she replied. "There is something important I need to tell you soon." Daniel felt a small flutter of worry. "Is everything all right?" She gave him a faint smile. "Yes, very much so. But I will speak when the time is right." He nodded, trusting her words. That night, in her grandmother's small adobe house on the reservation, Nayeli sat beside the old woman, who was weaving a blanket. The room smelled of burning sage and warm cedar wood. Her grandmother's hands moved slowly but confidently over the threads. "You have something on your mind," the old woman said without looking up. Nayeli hesitated. "Grandmother, I have found someone whose spirit feels true." The old woman finally raised her eyes, her gaze sharp but filled with love. "Tell me about him." Nayeli spoke softly, describing Daniel's patience, his honesty, the quiet strength he carried, and the way he respected the land. She spoke of how he listened more than he talked, how he helped without expecting anything, and how his presence made her feel calm and safe. Her grandmother listened carefully, stopping her weaving only once. "You have watched his actions," the old woman said. "You have studied his heart." "Yes," Nayeli whispered. "And your spirit?" her grandmother asked. "What does it say?" Nayeli felt her heartbeat quicken. "It says he is the one." The old woman nodded slowly, as if she had been expecting this. "Then you know what to do," she said. "When a woman's spirit finds the right person, she must speak with truth. The land brings people together for a reason." Nayeli stayed quiet, absorbing her grandmother's words. She felt both nervous and certain, a mixture of emotions she had never felt before. The next morning, she prepared to leave for Daniel's ranch early. She wore a simple dress with traditional beadwork along the edges, and she carried a small pouch of herbs, symbols of respect in her culture. Her grandmother watched her from the doorway and said softly, "Speak with a clear heart." "I will," Nayeli answered. On the ranch, Daniel was fixing the saddle on one of his horses when he saw her approaching. There was something different about her today, something serious yet peaceful. As she got closer, Daniel felt a stir of nervousness in his stomach, though he didn't know why. "Good morning," he said, trying to sound steady. "Good morning, Daniel," she replied. Her voice carried a gentle weight, as if she had been preparing her words carefully. Daniel noticed the small pouch in her hand. "Is everything all right?" he asked again. "Everything is as it should be," she said. She took a slow breath and stepped closer to him. The wind was quiet, the animals still, as if the entire ranch had paused to listen. "Daniel," she began in a soft but steady voice, "I have made a decision, one guided by my heart and my traditions." He stood silently, waiting, unsure what she was about to say. "In my culture," she continued, "a woman chooses the father of her future children with great care. It is not a decision made lightly. It is chosen by spirit, by truth, and by the guidance of elders." Daniel felt a sudden tightness in his chest. He didn't move. He barely breathed. Nayeli looked directly into his eyes, calm, steady, and completely honest. "I choose you to be the father." Daniel felt the world freeze for a moment. He stared at her, unable to speak. Her words were gentle, not rushed, spoken with quiet certainty. He could tell she meant every syllable. Nayeli continued softly, her voice filled with emotion but not fear. I choose you because you carry respect. You listen more than you speak. You are patient. You honor the land. You have the kind of heart I want my future children to learn from. Mine. Daniel swallowed hard. His mind raced. He felt honored, shocked, confused, and humbled, all at the same time. Nayeli, he finally whispered. This is a lot. He looked down at his hands, unsure how to respond. I don't know what to say. You do not need to answer quickly, she said gently. I did not come to pressure you. I came to speak truth. What you choose to do with that truth is your own path. Daniel took a shaky breath. I don't want to disappoint you. You won't, she told him. You have already shown me the kind of man you are. He took a few steps away, running a hand through his hair. The air felt heavy. Not in a bad way, but in a way that reminded him how serious this moment was. I never expected something like this, he admitted. I live a simple life. I never thought I would be someone anyone would choose for something so important. Nayeli stepped closer, her expression soft. The spirit chooses based on truth, not on wealth or status. You are steady, Daniel. You are kind. And you are honest. These are rare things. Daniel felt his chest warm with emotion. He wasn't used to such deep words being spoken to him. I just need time, he said quietly. Not because I'm unsure about you, but because I want to make the right choice. For you, for your family, and for your traditions. Nayeli nodded. I understand. Take the time you need. My decision remains true. They stood there in silence, the desert wind brushing gently around them. Daniel felt the weight of the moment, but also the beauty of it. He had never been chosen for anything so meaningful in his entire life. Nayeli placed the small pouch of herbs into his hand. This is a symbol of respect, she said. Whatever your decision is, I will honor it. Daniel held the pouch carefully, as though it were something sacred. Thank you, he whispered. Nayeli looked at him one last time, her eyes filled with trust and sincerity. Then she turned and walked slowly toward her horse. Daniel watched her go, feeling a mix of emotions he couldn't put into words. When she disappeared into the open desert, Daniel stood alone in the quiet yard, staring at the pouch in his hand. He felt the weight of responsibility, but also a deep sense of honor. The choice ahead of him was not simple, but he knew he had never faced anything so important. As the wind moved softly across the land, Daniel realized that his life was changing not because he had asked for it, but because someone saw something in him he had never truly seen in himself. The months that followed became some of the calmest days the ranch had seen in a long time. After everything Eli had experienced, his doubts, his confusion, his fears, the pressure from others, and the weight of responsibility, he finally began to understand what truly mattered. He realized that every difficult moment had shaped him into someone stronger, someone patient, someone who could support not just himself, but the people who had unexpectedly come into his life. Morning on the ranch began the same way almost every day. The soft light of dawn slowly spread across the open land, touching the mountains in the distance and the tall grass that swayed gently in the cold morning wind. Eli would step outside with a deep breath, feeling the fresh air fill his lungs. For years, he had done this alone. But now, when he stepped outside, two small figures sometimes followed him. One, a curious boy. The other, a brave little girl. They were not always there. But when they were, it made his morning feel different in the best possible way. The children enjoyed new things every day. Even simple things like watching the cattle, feeding the horses, or running around the open field made their eyes shine with joy. Eli tried to teach them lessons about the land, about nature, about how to take care of animals, and about respect. They listened carefully, not because anyone forced them, but because they trusted him. They felt safe with him, just as their mother did. Naomi watched quietly most mornings. She did not speak much, but her silence was never empty. It carried a warmth that Eli appreciated deeply. She often stood with her arms folded gently, observing how Eli moved, how he explained things, how he laughed when the children made a silly mistake, or how patient he remained when something went wrong. She admired his calm spirit, even if she did not say it aloud. Eli's neighbors eventually grew used to seeing Naomi and her children around the ranch. Some of them still whispered, some still wondered. But they eventually learned to respect Eli's choices. After all, it was his land, his life, and his responsibility. No one could question the kindness he showed. And those who watched closely understood something important. Eli did not take advantage of anyone. He only tried to help. He worked hard to make sure the children had everything they needed: food, warm clothes, safe places to sleep, and room to play. The ranch was big enough to give them all the space they wanted, but it also gave Eli enough space to think and reflect. He realized that taking care of them was not a burden. It was a blessing he had never expected. The ranch felt more alive with their laughter. Naomi's presence brought balance, calmness, and strength. She was someone who had survived more than most people could imagine, and yet she never complained. She faced every new day with quiet dignity. Sometimes, Naomi would walk with Eli across the ranch, and they would talk about small things. She would tell him about plants that grew in the mountains, stories from her childhood, and lessons her elders taught her. Eli would share stories from his own youth, stories about his father, his work, and the long days he spent alone. These conversations, simple as they were, slowly built a deeper connection between them, but not every day was easy. There were moments when the memory of the painful past still followed Naomi. She sometimes sat outside at night, looking at the stars with a thoughtful expression. Eli understood that she needed space on those nights. He never pushed her to speak. Instead, he would sit nearby, close enough so she knew she wasn't alone, but far enough to give her comfort. She appreciated that more than words could express. One evening, after a long day of work, Eli saw the children trying to help him carry small tools back to the barn. They were not strong enough to lift the heavy items, but they tried their best anyway. He smiled and took the tools from their hands gently, telling them they had done enough. They smiled proudly, happy that their efforts mattered. Naomi watched this with soft eyes. She didn't need to say anything. The look on her face told Eli everything. She trusted him, she respected him, and she felt grateful that he treated her children with care. Trust like that wasn't freely given, especially from someone who had lived through hardship, but she gave it because Eli had earned it. Over time, Eli noticed that Naomi began taking small steps to build her own life on the ranch. She started helping with tasks she felt comfortable doing: drying herbs, preparing food, and teaching the children stories from her people. She also carved small wooden figures for the children, shaped like animals they saw around the ranch. The children loved them and kept them close. The ranch, once quiet and lonely, slowly transformed into a place filled with life. Even the animals seemed calmer, as if they sensed the positive energy surrounding them. Eli often wondered how such a big change happened. But he realized the answer was simple. When people who care for each other share a space, the space itself becomes better. But the peace on the ranch did not mean their responsibilities were over. Naomi made sure the children understood the importance of learning both from her and from Eli. She wanted them to grow strong, wise, and respectful. Eli supported her completely. Their teamwork became natural, even without planning or discussion. It was as if their different worlds had finally found a way to blend together. On one cool afternoon, Eli and Naomi sat near the old wooden fence, watching the sunset. The sky turned shades of orange and pink, painting the land in warm colors. The children played nearby, running around with loud laughter that echoed across the ranch. Naomi's voice broke the peaceful silence. She said softly that when she first arrived, she had been unsure of her decision. She had chosen Eli because she saw something honest in him, something kind, something steady, but back then, she didn't know how everything would turn out. Now she knew she had made the right choice. She said this not with emotion, but with calm certainty. Eli listened quietly. Her words touched him more deeply than he expected. He told her that she had changed his life too. Before she came, he lived in routine, working, sleeping, repeating, but she brought purpose to his days. The children brought joy. And even though he never asked for this responsibility, he was grateful for it. It had taught him more about love, trust, and patience than anything else. The silence that followed was comfortable. It was the kind of silence shared by people who understood each other without needing many words. As weeks passed, the bond between them became stronger. Naomi no longer carried the same heaviness in her eyes. She seemed lighter, calmer, more at peace. Eli noticed this, and it made him happy. The children grew stronger too, learning new things every day. They played in the fields, helped with simple chores, and learned to respect the land just as their mother had been taught. One day, during a storm, the roof of one of the small barns started leaking. Eli rushed to fix it, but the rain made it difficult. Without hesitation, Naomi grabbed tools and helped him. They worked together until the leak was sealed. When they returned inside, soaked and shivering, the children laughed at how wet they were. Eli and Naomi couldn't help but smile. It was a small moment, but it showed how naturally they supported each other. Eventually, word spread across nearby towns about the new family at the ranch. Not a family formed by force, but one formed by choice, trust, and shared strength. People became curious, but Eli was careful about who he allowed close. The ranch was not a place for gossip. It was a place for healing, growth, and peace. As time went on, Naomi felt safe enough to make long-term plans. She wanted to build a small garden near the house, using seeds from her homeland. Eli promised to help. They worked slowly, preparing the soil, planting each seed with care. The children loved helping, even though they made a mess more often than not. Naomi would laugh softly when they ended up with mud on their faces. Eli would shake his head but secretly enjoy the chaos. The garden became a symbol of new beginnings. Each plant that sprouted reminded them that life continues. No matter the difficulties of the past, growth takes time, patience, and care, just like the bond they were building together. As the seasons changed, their lives settled into a natural rhythm. There were still challenges, but they faced them as a team. And through it all, Eli realized something important. He had not only become a protector or a guide, he had become part of a real family. One evening, as they all sat around a small fire outside, Naomi looked at Eli with quiet appreciation. The children leaned against him, tired after a long day of play. The stars above shone brightly, lighting up the dark sky. Naomi whispered a simple sentence, but it carried deep meaning. She told him that her choice had never been a mistake. She chose him because she saw a good heart, and now that heart had become the home she and her children needed. Eli didn't respond right away. He didn't need to. The warmth in his eyes, the gentle smile on his face, and the peaceful silence surrounding them said everything. For the first time in a long time, Eli felt complete. Not because life was perfect, but because he no longer lived it alone. He had become someone others could depend on, someone who made life better for the people beside him. And in that moment, under the quiet sky, surrounded by trust, hope, and new beginnings, their journey felt beautiful, one that would continue to grow stronger with every passing day.